Turn this off.
Okay, let me look right now. Should probably say something to Stafford. This one says 151.
Andy, before we start, may I ask if anybody needs interpretation?
Yes, you may.
¿Alguien va a ocupar interpretación? Servicios de interpretación. Somebody's going to need interpretation in Spanish? Okay, gracias.
Okay, let's call to order. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next up, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next, I'd like to announce our new student representatives at the board. Hadley, thank you for being here.
Welcome, Hadley.
Welcome. And I also believe,
You walked right in.
perfect timing. Come on up. You have your own chair. You're good. And Ziao from South, thank you for being here. Thank you.
I'll say it.
Comments from the public? Mr. Superintendent.
So as normal, the entire text of two comments that we received today are available and provided in the board packet and is submitted for the public record. Public comment number one, the commenter made 2 points, concern with superintendent decision by the board that impacts the budget. In other words, how that, you went about that. And concern about moving on from last year without an apology. Public comment number two, the commenter made 4 points, concern about supervision at sporting events, preventing students vaping at school, Meadow Ridge Field safety concern, transparency about fights at schools, and disciplinary actions taken. Those are our comments.
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman, I got an envelope here from Liberty Elementary. Are we going to get to comment on some of these comments at some point? Maybe I'll wait for our turn.
Sure.
Sure to do that. Thank you.
Okay, next up is board business. I don't think anything's on that portion. And Superintendent Andy Gardner, your comments.
Thank you, Chairman Morse. Just a few State of the District comments right now. I'm in the process of going to buildings for staff meetings, either to be a part of a staff meeting agenda for 5 or 10 minutes, or to kind of be the whole agenda for as long as 25, 30 minutes. In general, I think that the adults in the district are focused on kids. My time in the hallways, in staff meetings, as school releases, or as school starts, depending on when the meeting occurs, indicate that the great strength of our district is our adults and the relationships with the students in the buildings, right? That's like just bedrock. having worked in a lot of different districts as a consultant, I think that this staff and the kids in the buildings in this district are, have great relationships, and that the buildings have a good feeling to them. The number one concern, I think, well, without question, is the lack of substitutes and bringing on people. Substitutes are, and the lack of that impact our ability to recover kids and their learning. It is really difficult to provide continuity. It's also really hard on staff to give their preps up every day at the secondary level. It's even harder probably to regroup kids every day because we don't have enough subs that elementary teachers are teaching kids that are not assigned to them that they don't know every day. So that would be the number one thing that we're working on. We will be meeting with EDGE staff just to explore what that looks like. And I know Heather has done some work with them prior. I believe Case also was in on those meetings. So we're going to look at that and see what the options are there. And then Heather has 2 recruitment events set up at Memorial and
Oak Elementary.
Oak Elementary, where we hope to gather a few more people and just really effort at that. Because I think it's a huge issue and it's a drag on what we're trying to accomplish. Met with both the certified and classified union leaders the other day. Jane and I sat down and met with them for 2 hours and began to identify some of the things that we are going to need to work on this year with them. And we are going to continue that with with a meeting upcoming where we'll meet with both of them. All-Star Awards coming up on November 7th. That's in place of a board meeting. And look forward to that. It'll be my first time doing that. And I think it's great that we're back in person to do that. So that's really all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Board reports. Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do. And I apologize, it's kind of late. The year got away from me. September did. But back in late August, early September, when I took my daughter to register, something struck me. There was a sign as you went through the process of registering that said, student activity fees are waived this year. And I just wanted to highlight, I believe that was part of our decision with Student Success Act money, that we've kind of ended the pay to play, I believe. And I think it's just one of many. Later today on the agenda, we're going to talk about the health team, and part of that is the counselor teams, and we're going to talk about 28 counselors. Well, we didn't have, it wasn't that long ago, we didn't have hardly that many. And it was also through Student Success Act money that we got to count at least one counselor in every building. And so I think, you know, when I say Student Success Act, the money from that is the corporate activities tax. And I just think it's doing good things in this district, and particularly, and in other districts throughout the state. And I think we should highlight, and that's all I'm saying, just jog my memory when I was going through the line. But as we go on the year, I'd like to see later, and I don't know how this would, I guess I could ask each, when the middle school and the high school principals come before us, but perhaps late, has it increased participation? That's what I'm getting at. I hope it has. I hope it has, because the point of it was to kind of eliminate that barrier to participation. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, thank you. Roger, do you have anything?
Well, I want to talk about what Michael said, but I'll wait for it. Just today, I attended the West-South football game Thursday night. Didn't quite turn out the way I was hoping. I was looking for one of those plays like Oregon State got at the end of their game Saturday night. But look, it was a great community event. I'd venture to say there were more people there than there probably will be at the 5A state championship game. And I think that Coach Luber from South Albany represented the community's thoughts and feelings about that game and the community's support for it. I do think on a ratio, and we heard it a little bit, I think, in one of the public comments, that the ratio of supervisory folks to young kids was a bit out of whack, and going forward, we might figure out a way to improve that some. I mean, kids are going to be kids, and that's fine, but we want everybody to feel safe, too.
Eric?
I got to have lunch with the superintendent today, and I think we're having lunch on Wednesday at AOS. I'm looking forward to that, sir. And I know we have a meeting with Sodexo coming up. That's when we did our survey a few years ago, it was a really big issue of school lunches. And recently, I was approached why like 4, maybe 5 of the schools in the district don't offer free lunch, but the rest of the district does. And I think we got used to that COVID money that we were getting. And I want to make sure, though, that our customer service, that we find if people are in the middle of free and reduced lunch and being able to afford lunch for your student, that the district is there to help and support, and that if we do find people in those circumstances, we can take those on one by one and really open doors. And I know your staff does a really good job at that. Just wanted to make sure that we were identifying those that just might need a little support. Thank you.
I had a lunch at Memorial today. I really appreciate the hosting by the principal, Ken Gilbert. And it was nice to be there compared to last year I went there. The halls were a lot more crazy, and behaviors were a lot less acceptable last year than this year, and that's great. And I think that's helping the kids because it's allowing them to focus on school and doing some of that learning catch up. I had lunch, hadn't had a school lunch for a long time, but we're going to have a decision about that kind of thing. So I thought it was important that I had a school lunch. So it was, I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't say it was bad. It was a school lunch. You know, it was a piece of pizza and some cocktail fruit and an apple, and there you go. That's all I have. Committee, community, and school presentations. Oh, hold it, my fault. Student, board member reports. Either of you would like to, the mic is yours. I apologize.
Does it matter which one of us goes first?
One goes first this time, the other one goes first next time. Sounds
Do you
good.
want to rock, paper, scissors? Okay. Wow.
That's procrastination now.
No, that's
Why don't you just go?
that's insane. A boy band. That was great.
Talk before this.
Over at, does the mic work?
Yeah, you just got to be right in front of it.
Over at South, we just had our family and FAFSA and Orson night. We had over 100 students and we had over 100 seniors show up to the FAFSA night, and we got a bunch of that taken care of, and a lot of seniors got their FAFSA filled out properly, and so we had a huge help with that from a lot of people in the community, counselors, some college people came over, stuff like that. We've been celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month lately at South, and we've been having highlights every Wednesday and having sound play out by the cafeteria, and we have food in the Career Center that's ran by Miss Mercado, who is putting on that whole Hispanic Heritage Month celebration thing. Also recently we had our Red Hawk Homecoming. We had lots of great participation throughout the Spirit Week that week, and at the football game we have very positive student section at our football games, and also just a good dance and week overall. And then also lately we had a volleyball state preview and cross-country Heritage Classic, which brought a lot of great athletes from around Oregon over to South Albany and to Albany in general. And overall, we just been preparing for the rest of the school year, planning out what we want to do the rest of the school year, and looking forward to a good year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So hi, I'm Hadley. I'm a junior at West Albany, and I'm very excited about being in this position. I wanted to touch on that last week was our homecoming week at West, and it was also Spirit Week. It was great to see the student and teacher participation. It was just a very fun atmosphere. We also had our Powder Puff and Powder Tough games on Wednesday, in which the juniors took both of those. It was great. We had a pep assembly on Thursday, which included a grade level cheer off. Also during the assembly, it was nice to see some teacher participation in a fruit roll-up eating contest. Thursday night was the homecoming football game and homecoming queen coronation. Great energy. Last Friday, there was no school for students, but there was the homecoming dance that night, organized by leadership. The theme was Nightmare on Elm Street. It was pretty scary, if you ask me. Also on Friday, even though there was no school for students, there was a staff training on how to handle microaggressions in the classroom, and overall, I heard that went really well. This past weekend, water polo and volleyball had tournaments, and I believe girls water polo is heading down to California this Friday because they placed third. Coming up are class elections for the grades. And regarding school clubs, Youth in Government will have their first meeting this week alongside a Latinx club this meeting. On Friday, there's going to be a meeting. There's also been PSAT signups happening. I will be attending that, and I wanted to get the number of how many students are going, but I've heard it's a pretty big amount, which is good to hear. I also wanted to point out that this week is National School Lunch Week this week, meaning all students have the ability to get a free school lunch this week. And I just think that's really awesome. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Hadley.
Question
Go
for
ahead.
Hadley. The difference between powder puff and powder tough?
So Powder Puff is when the junior and senior girls get to play flag football. And Powder Tough is when the junior and senior boys get to play volleyball. And it was great energy. And I'm happy to say I participated in Powder Puff on O-line and D-line. Let's just say I left some bruises. Also received some. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee and community and school presentations. Next up is consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve personnel licensed as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
I move to approve personnel classified as presented.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Old business, nothing to report. Reports. First up, Health Services. Our Assistant Superintendent, Lisa Harlan, and Rachel Smith, and Marivi Wright.
It's Mari V, right? So
I
I'm
apologize.
I'm just
I'm
going to
brutalizing
ask
names.
Dr. Smith. No, you come on up to the podium, and certainly Mari V, Wright, who represent the Director of Comprehensive Health Services and the Coordinator of Comprehensive Health Services. Before I turn it over, one of the things that I'd just like to point out is that the Comprehensive Health Services Department is a new department for this district. It was started, actually
July 2021.
Okay, I was going to say 2 years. It seems longer, but so just over a year. The intent of it was really to bring together some of the aspects of physical health, mental health, supports for students and families into the same department. So that includes nursing, it includes FACT, it includes wraparound services, community partnerships, responsible for the oversight of our professional development for counselors. So it's quite a big job, and you'll hear more about the great work that they do. But one of the things that's been so powerful about it are the number of partnerships that we've been able to start that are new for us in the district over the last year, and the sheer number of grants that this department, and particularly these two together, have been able to apply for and been awarded. That's allowed us to provide even more services to students. And so just super proud of the work, especially for a new department, and certainly one that can serve as a model for the state around how to incorporate both physical and mental health services in a model that doesn't exist in a lot of other places. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
And take it away.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having us here. Again, I'm Rachel Smith. I'm our Director of Health Services, and this is Mari V. Wright. She is our Health Services Coordinator. She is our supervisor of the FACT team, and she's also our McKinney-Vento and foster care liaison. So she wears a lot of hats and does them all amazingly. So next slide for for me. Thank you. So as Assistant Superintendent Harlan mentioned, our health services team really started around July 2021. And underneath of that umbrella right now, we have myself and Marivi as the director and coordinator. We also have our counseling department, which currently has an elementary lead counselor, Jamie Shep, our secondary lead counselor and crisis response coordinator, who is Anna Harriman, and then we have 28 additional school counselors. Our nursing team also falls under that, and we have 5 district nurses who are registered nurses. We have 5 licensed practical nurses, or LPNs, who provide direct one-on-one care with students who are considered to be nurse dependent. And then we have our amazing nurse secretary, Sabrina Bumgardner, who really helps manage a lot of the different coordinating parts of our nurse team. And then we have our FAC team, who are our social services and resource team for the district. And that includes our 6 GAPS liaisons. We have an ESD liaison who's joined us this year, and our FAC secretary. So altogether, about 50 people on our health services team that are directly in the district. And then we also have a myriad of partnerships that we'll talk a little bit about too that help provide services. And this team really emerged as an insight from what we really learned from COVID. We saw a real need to ground health in our work in the district because we know that students can't attend or be engaged if they aren't healthy and if they don't have the means to access the needs that they have. So for us, we really ground our work in how to best support students achieve. And so with that, we have been able to increase our staffing and create this team in a way to move each of these teams from a responsive service that works for some students to a more holistic program that can help serve all students. And that was really a goal of ours in creating this team model. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one of our key accomplishments I think we've really celebrated in the last year as a team is that we have received and managed several grants totaling more than $673,000. A few of these grants are listed here. Those are our primary one. Our School Health Services Planning Grant focuses specifically on improving school nursing services and is something that we started in 2019, actually. Our COVID Recovery Funding Grant is another combination grant from the Oregon Health Authority and from the Centers of Disease Control that we've received funding for to help support some COVID work that we were doing. Our McKinney-Vento subgrant is one that we've been recently awarded to help support our students who are identified as being houseless or doubled up or unsheltered in some way. And our ARP HCY grants also help support a lot of that work for our families and students who need extra support to help meet some of their basic needs. And then we've also received a School Suicide Prevention and Wellness mini grant, which is helping support some of our crisis response work and preparing for what our response looks like when situations occur. So with these grants, we've been able to fund approximately 3 FTE as a department, which has included 2 COVID support team members from Lynn County Public Health that we have a really exciting partnership with. They helped support us with some of our contact tracing and case investigation work in early 2022. And then I've also done some work to help supply families with needs, COVID tests, coordinating other things that might happen around someone's isolation. Because when a family tests positive for COVID, they're stuck at home, as I think many of you remember from early pandemic, 14 days, and that's just for one person. When it goes through a household of 6 or 8, you could be talking months at a time. So really helping support families, make sure that they can still access needs even if they're not able to leave their house. Our other FTE funding has come to help support some of our McKinney-Vento staffing work and also some of our district nurse work. We also, with these grants, have gotten extra funding to help cover some students' basic needs, school supplies, and tutors for students identified as McKinney-Vento, which is really exciting to be able to help make sure that we're reaching those students to be able to attend and engage. And with our work and our grants, we've actually gotten commendation from the Oregon Health Authority that we've received 2 of our grants from as creating an innovative model for school health services. And with that, we have participated in interviews with the Oregon Health Authority. GAPS is going to be featured as a spotlight in their use of funding and how they have really taken advantage of this health services team. And we've received significant recognition, again, from Oregon Health Authority in our use and development of relationships with community partners, which I'll turn over to Marivi.
Good evening. I just want to follow up with the accomplishments that Rachel was sharing with you. And thanks to our continued and expanding partnerships with the community organizations, we have been able to serve more students. To name some of our partnerships, we can name Casa Latinos Unidos, Community Health Centers of Benton and Lynn counties, Boys and Girls Club Dental Clinic, Benton and Lynn County Public Health, Lynn County Mental Health, Trillium Family Services, North Albany Wellness Center, Jackson Street Youth Services, Ophelia's Place, the YMCA, Young Roots, some shelters in the community, and many other agencies in the community. Supporting our schools now, we have a full-time community health worker for our Latinx community, and a part-time OHP navigator and immediate resources and services for students and families.
So with those partnerships, we weren't able to really represent everyone that we work with on those slides because the list has grown so significantly, it didn't really fit. But they are really helping support our 3 primary departments for this team. And the first team I'd like to talk about is our counseling team. Our counseling team has grown from approximately 18 counselors to more about 30 counselors, which has been a really amazing accomplishment because it means that students in each of our schools have access to a counselor, which is something we haven't been able to say before, and that's true as of this year. We also have been able to really expand our work in professional development for our counseling team. So as a district, our health services team kind of fall in this interesting niche license category where they're licensed, but they're not educators. And so trying to make sure that we have appropriate professional development for them where they can grow and expand in their practice is really important. Last year, we were able to send 11 counselors to the Oregon School Counseling Association conference, and we sent 2 counselors actually to the American School Counseling Association conference this last year. And then this year, we're planning on sending 19 counselors who are interested next month. So they're really excited. That picture in the top right corner there is actually our group from last year that got to go. And we received a lot of great feedback from the counselors who attended, saying that it was just in a time during a pandemic that's been so difficult and have been hit with so many things, to be able to have that sense of togetherness and really bonding over their shared experience and their shared role, because in some of our schools, there's only one counselor. And so for them to be able to have that experience of growing and building a team together is really important. We also, this last year, have been able to create a self-harm protocol to help work with some of the things that we're seeing in terms of mental health of students. And we have all counselors trained in ASSIST, which is our response to suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. So that way we can do appropriate follow-up if a student identifies a need for intervention, and make sure that they get the health and the safety plans that they need. One other big accomplishment for our team this year is Joyce Labengood. She was awarded our Sources of Strength Adult Advisor Award, which was really exciting because Joyce has done some amazing Sources of Strength work for the district. And again, that really helps support our suicide prevention work as a district. So some of our work for this year is really focusing on developing that comprehensive counseling program together. So each of our levels, elementary, middle, and high, are having conversations about what that looks like and then how that ties to support the strategic plan and what systems we need to have in place for what that looks like. One other thing that we're highlighting, really working on our training this year, is 504s. So our counseling team does a lot of the work for the creation, revision, and support of the 504 plan, which is a plan that legally helps protect the rights of students with disabilities. So a lot of our students with medical diagnoses will fall under 504 plans where they don't need specialized education, but they might need accommodations to be able to access their learning. So our counseling team has done a lot of really good work on trying to make sure that we meet students' needs that way. Our nursing team, I am really excited about these accomplishments. And so in this top right corner here, we have what they call the Framework for 21st Century School Nursing Practice. So school nursing is really a nursing adventure unlike any others, because everywhere else you'll hear about ratios of maybe 1 to 8 patients per nurse. Here you could end up with, when I started, 1 to 9,000, 1 to 2,000. So, trying to prioritize is a whole different adventure. So under our team, we grew from 2 district nurses to now 5 district nurses and myself as the nursing supervisor, We've also grown our licensed practical nurse team from 4 to 5, which gives us the ability to provide floats, breaks, and really provide that support that our students who require daily nursing care from when they get on the bus in the morning to they get off the bus at the end of the day. And with this growth of the team, we've really been able to actually provide support to every school to help support student health needs, which has been really exciting because our nurses focus on physical, mental, social, emotional, and behavioral health. And the last 2 years, I think, as you all are probably really familiar with, we've done a lot of work to facilitate the district's response to our COVID requirements and management. So that's a much better space this year than we've been in the last few years, but it's been a lot of work for the nurse team, and they've done an amazing job with it. So one of our other accomplishments, Sabrina Baumgartner, our nurse secretary, she was awarded the GAACE Brass Apple Award for all of her amazing work in supporting students and staff, and her work really just, she's the cheerleader of the team at all times, and also manages all of the things that involve a lot of hard work, like vision screenings and immunizations. And then I was awarded the OSNA School Nurse Administrator of the Year, which feels a little awkward to say, but also I thought I was going to get in trouble if I left it out. So we'll just move right past that one.
Well earned.
So our district nurse team is really responsible for a lot of things. They support chronic and acute health conditions. They support mental health. They do training for staff. They work on policy and protocol development to help keep students safe and healthy. And they do a lot of work with health prevention and promotion. And with a larger team, we're seeing the ability to really meet those needs more. But with that, we're also seeing a real increase in student needs. So in the last 5 years, we've almost doubled as a district our medically complex and our medically fragile numbers for students identified. So for us, that looks like medically complex. There are mandated ratios in place of 1 nurse for every 225 students. Medically fragile is 1 nurse for every 150 students. And we know those students involve some type of daily or weekly check-ins at all times. So some data that we were able to pull recently, this year, so in the past 2 months, we've written individual health plans to support 374 students, which is about 4% of students in the district. That's a pretty significant increase from 2014-2015 school year where we supported about 194 students. And it's actually almost 50 students more than it was last year, by the end of last year. So we're seeing a real increase in our medical needs in the community and also in our ability to help support those. Last year, we trained a lot of staff. So we trained about 294 staff members in some of the required trainings like CPR and first aid, medication administration, EpiPen and glucagon. And then we trained specific staff, 225 of them, in the anticipated emergency training. So that looks like care that students are directly required to have as rescue medications, either for seizures, adrenal crisis, things of that nature. And then we delegated care to more than 60 staff members for our students who require medical intervention that a nurse may not be able, with ratios, to be able to be there to provide that. So that looks like diabetic care for a lot of our students who are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It can include gastrointestinal tube feedings and urinary catheterizations are the ones we see most common. So we have quite a few students who require that, and that's something under a nursing license that we are required to do. Yeah.
Question for you, Rich. The increase is not commensurate with the student increase.
Correct.
Right? What do you attribute that to?
That's a great question, and it's a hot topic in the nursing world. One of the things that I feel like I'm seeing here at GAPS is that we have a better ability to respond, and we're getting to become more of a public team. So I think we're actually getting more referrals. I think some of these students maybe have existed and we didn't recognize or know that they did because of processes in place that didn't facilitate identification. So that's one of our goals as a team, is to really be able to have systems to facilitate that identification of students with health needs. But the other thing we're really seeing is that students with health needs can participate in school much more easily than they could even 5 to 10 years ago. So we have some students who historically would not have been able to really make it through a school day, who now, with the way medical technology has developed and things of that nature, they're not only to be able to be present, but they're able to be active in their learning in ways maybe that wasn't possible before. So we are seeing much higher needs than perhaps what we would have seen 5, even especially 10 years ago. And so I think that is also why we're seeing an increase in students who would identify as medically complex and medically fragile, because they're able to come to school. And we are trying to support them in however they're able to come to school. And sometimes that requires a lot of work.
Thank you.
Great question. So as part of that, I think the first 2 bullet points really talk to those students who are identified with medical conditions, but we also provide health room or on-site medical care for all students. So again, this is moving from that select to general. The last data we were really able to pull was ended 3 days before COVID shut us down in 2020. And we collected data for 1 month from every school in the district about how many health room visits they had. And it ended up projecting over a year about 96,813 health room visits of students coming into the health room across gaps in a school year. So we are really excited to collect some data this year to see how many of those get to be nurse visits compared to what they were before. We also, in relation to some of our work with COVID, we were able to provide and support 16 different vaccine clinics in the 2021 year, which resulted in more than 2,100 shots given, which was really exciting. We actually had the first vaccine clinics in Benton and Lynn County available for 5 to 11-year-olds. And we investigated more than 2,322 COVID cases. About 1,000 of them were in January alone. If you all remember our Omicron bump, that was an adventure. And then one of the other key components with the health promotion piece is really managing our immunization requirements. We do that for every student, and we provide vision screenings. Last year, we could only support K3, again with COVID requirements, but this year we are planning on doing vision screening for all of K5 in the fall, and we're aiming to do 6-8 in the spring, which will be our first time working with middle school students in that. So with this, we've really seen with the growth of the team, the ability to kind of go in and help support more students with their variety of needs. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mariví about our FACT team.
Thank you. Well, I had the opportunity now to share with you what the FACT team does. And if you are familiar with the team, you may know a little bit, but for those that are not familiar with the team, I want to say that FACT stands for Family and Community Together. We are 8 full-time employees and 1 ESD contractor, and each employee is assigned to several schools, and they work closely with the counselors, the nurses, the teachers, the students, and the families. We are the bridge between the families and the schools, and I want to add that we are also the bridge with the community. So we connect the families, the schools, and the agencies in the community that can support the families in the needs that they may have. We provide health and social services support. We advocate for our families. Our families sometimes when they are under distress, they don't have the ability to advocate for them the best they can or the best that they could do. So we try to be the ones that hold their hands for a little while until they get to the place that they need to get. We offer parent coaching. We do it through sometimes our conversations, sometimes our meetings, and sometimes we try to link them to classes that can help them develop better skills to be parents. As we know, it can be an adventure to be a parent, so we try to support our families the best we can. I would like to highlight some of the things, the wonderful things that the FACT team has done. And this past year, so the school year 2021 to 2022, we assisted more than 1,000 students in need. We supported 239 McKinney-Vento students. If you remember, the McKinney-Vento students are those that are in unstable housing, those that are living in the street, living in tents, campgrounds, hotels, double up, and we have quite a few of those students again this year. We processed over 500 mental health referrals. We conducted 413 home visits, and we facilitated conversations between schools and families. And those conversations were conversations around IEPs, 504s, attendance, behavior issues. Some of our families don't feel comfortable going to the school and maybe talking, and they don't think they know how to maintain these conversations or have these conversations. So we kind of go and try to be the bridge between administrators, teachers, and the family. Now, that was for 2021, 2022. So I want you to think now about this year. So in a month, maybe a little bit more than a month, we already helped more than 500 students in need. We provided school supplies to more than 500 students. We have identified 201 McKinney-Vento students for this year just in the first month of school. And these kids, again, these are families that are living in the street, campgrounds, motels, hotels, cars, trailers. And right now, just in 1 month, we have been able to identify 201. We have processed 34 mental health referrals. We organized a school supply giveaway. We didn't announce it. We just shared it with some individuals in the school district. Some of the teachers reached out to us, some families reached out to us, and no advertising the event. That day, we helped more than 350 students, just that day. It was very successful. We started a resource closet to support students in need. We applied and received a federal sub-grant to support McKinney-Vento students, and that is allowing us to work with the students a little bit closer. We're trying to track attendance, academics, provide tutors. We're trying to provide everything we can to help these kids succeed. We have attended 4 community events, 8 registration events in different schools, and 1 FAFSA workshop that you were talking about earlier. We were there too to support our students that are in high school. The community events that we attended to was a health fair with the YMCA, the Day of Hope, organized by Love Inc. We also attended Jackson Street event where we just put tie-dyeing t-shirts, but it was a great opportunity to connect with the kids doing that. And we did a school supply giveaway with one of the churches in the community. So this is probably the highlight of my year so far. We started the resource closet. Thanks to the Albany Public Schools Foundation, we were able to buy shelves and items that we could, that can help us organize the room itself. So I want you to look at those pictures. And the picture on the top is how the closet looks after we helped 500 students. Those containers that you see there are full of school supplies, socks, underwear, hygiene products, notebooks, scissors, glue, pencils, you name it. We had there everything that you can use to get a child ready to go to school. Businesses and community members donated the clothes, the shoes, the school supplies, and other needed items. It was run by FACT until last week, but it was more than we could handle because we had so many people donating and willing to help that we had to reach out to volunteers. So now we have 3 volunteers, approved volunteers, that are gonna help us run it and organize the clothes by sizes, gendered, and whatever is needed, they're gonna help us with that, which we are very, very thankful. Families in need can access the closet through self-referrals and referrals from administrators, teachers, and counselors. The families don't necessarily go in person to the closet. The closet is located at Central Elementary, and because it is a school, we don't want individuals coming in and out. So we just meet with the families, we write down what they need, and we go there and choose the things for the family. Sometimes we send them a picture. I have these 2 coats. Which one do you like better? So we try to help the families the best we can. Now, I have to tell you that when I was organizing the closet during the summer, trying to get it ready for the beginning of the school year, one of the things that kept coming to my mind, it was that it takes a village. It takes a village to support our students. It's just not the school district, it's everyone, the families themselves and the little businesses in the corner and the big businesses. And this closet is possible, of course, thanks to the Albany Public Schools Foundation, but it's also possible because we have a very giving community. And I cannot tell you how many times when I said I need these, someone came forward, a lady in the community, a business in the community, and say, I have these for you. And that's why we had this resource closet today. So it really takes a village, and Albany is stepping up to that. And as we know, we all know in this room that the biggest contributor to end poverty is education. And I can say that this closet and the FACT team is taking our students a little step closer to succeed in education. So I'm very proud of my team and the place where I work.
Thank you very much. That's awesome.
And I think just to kind of close with that, although Mariví did the best closing possible, that's our goal of this whole health services team is to be able to have students be able to access their education based on regardless of whatever needs they may have, and in addition to whatever needs they may have. And so really supporting kids so that way they can attend, engage, and really participate. And so for us, that's our goal with this team. And we just thank you so much for inviting us here tonight and giving us a chance to tell you about our really exciting team that's on year 2. So thank you.
I have questions.
Go ahead.
So, great presentation, great stuff. I'm amazed that you're in every school doing all these things. That's great. Do you know about what % of your funding is, I guess I would call it GAPS general fund funding? Is that the right term? Versus grant money? Do you have an idea of percentage-wise?
I'm going to look to Assistant Superintendent Harlan here to see if she has.
I don't have an exact percentage, but I would say by far and away, the majority is either SIA funding, is grant funding, or is Medicaid funding. So there are certain services that we provide, so nursing, for example, that are billed to Medicaid, and we also have what we call MAC funding. So we have surveys that come out, it's different this year, it might be three times a year instead of annually, that says, did you provide any of these services? Whether that's connecting a family to an organ health plan or providing some medical services to students that need it. And so we're reimbursed through those programs for those things. So in terms of general fund, I don't have the exact number. I would look to business service. But if I had to estimate, I would say 20% or less.
20% or less is our
general fund. Correct.
Okay, so we're getting 5 times our bang for our buck in theory.
Easily.
Have you had one of the grant sources, the Coordinated Care Organization in our area, IHN, are they participating?
We actually have a grant application in with them right now to try to, so Mariví and I are kind of constantly looking for and applying for grants as able. And so we actually have a grant application in with IHN CCO at the moment. And I think we hear back sometime next month about the possibility for that. But that's something where is also one of our goals to grow our partnerships, because now that we have a setup like this, we can really have a coordinated effort to be able to connect with IHN CCO, Samaritan Health Services, Corvallis Clinic, and connect even more with our public health and our federally qualified health centers.
Okay. I'll have more questions, I'm sure, but love the presentation, the work you're doing. Good for now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have a counselor at every elementary school now?
Yes, at least 0.5 FTE.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. There was a time when I argued for counselors and administration said it wasn't going to happen. So your hard work on that is phenomenal. Thank you. Do you know the splits? So a mega school like Meadow Ridge versus Tangent.
Right now, it depends on the school. Our general staffing across the district tends to be about 1 counselor per elementary school, 2 counselors per middle school, and 4 counselors for each of our traditional high schools and 1 for AOS. And so we've stayed kind of similar to that staffing in an attempt to just have every school covered, and then conversations about what does ratios kind of look like from there.
Thank you. I would like to compliment you and thank you. My son was the very first student to get vaccinated at Waverly when you hosted that. So thank you for allowing that opportunity. Last year, the board passed a policy on Narcan. Can you give us an update on?
Yes, that is a great question. So Narcan is something near and dear to my heart. I was an ICU nurse before I came to this, and I've done a lot of work with Narcan and with overdose deaths. And so we have been working really closely with our local public health authorities, and we actually just got news from the Oregon Health Authority that they will be writing a general prescription for all schools to be able to use from their state epidemiologist. That should be coming down the pipeline in the next few weeks. So that way we can just use that to order our Narcan, because that's been kind of our biggest hang up, is that As nurses, we're allowed to do a lot of things, but write prescriptions is not one of them. So getting that provider signature, and then we actually already have, as you mentioned, we already have the board policy in place to be able to move forward with that, which has not been true for every district. So it's a really exciting opportunity for us. We'll start by training the nurses and then roll it out. The intention is to do high school, the middle school, and have the nurses lead that training. That would fall then into one of those, that very first top line with first aid and CPR was we would also be training staff in Narcan.
That was another question. Is it a continuing education requirement for staff, certified or classified staff to have first aid, Heimlich, CPR training?
It's not a continuing ed requirement, but as a district, we're required to have one person trained per every 60 students in the school. So it looks a little different depending on which school you're in and how many students there are present. And I would anticipate that Narcan would probably fall less than that, like it wouldn't be a mandated ratio, but we do offer the first aid and CPR lasts for 2 years. The other trainings last for 3 years. And so we are constantly renewing people in that. And our nurse team leads all of our first aid trainings right now.
You talked about you talked about partnerships. Are we partnering with local clinics and hospitals to complete no cost or low cost sports physicals and EKGs?
That's another good question. So we had been partnering with Samaritan in the past. There was a pause on a lot of that during COVID because our clinics didn't have the capacity to support. So that's something we're actually looking back into right now to see what access we can have for students and families with that, both for athletic physicals and then also for immunizations, because that's something we know a lot of families missed in the last few years. And there weren't local organizations that had their own clinics to be able to send families to. So those are both kind of one of our goals for this year. But with some of the continuing COVID burden for clinics and hospitals, they're still really being impacted by some of that. So the availability may not be there until next year is what we're possibly anticipating.
Is there a possibility in the future to have open houses where we invite parents and students of the district to talk about issues like ADHD, and what kind of training, what we can do to work with our children?
Yeah, that's actually something we've talked with some of our schools about. We are actually bringing in some of our community partners to our wellness nights at some of our elementary schools. So Casa Latinos Unidos is actually going to be at Sunrise's Wellness Night and Lafayette's Wellness Night and have a table and also be able to sign up families for the Oregon Health Plan. And be able to learn a bit more about their program. We also are in conversations with our school administrators and counselors to see what other type of parent nights they might be interested in, where we could help pull in community partners to have those conversations, or be able to help support groups that maybe are already existing. So when we think of Casa Latinos Unidos, they've done some work on financial well-being, and that's something that as a district, we can support by having places where they could offer those classes and things like that. So that's something where, as our team is growing, we're really interested in seeing what some of the needs that the community has identified to be able to help support those needs.
Perfect. That's a great partnership for you and the educators side. Assistant Superintendent Harlan gave me multiple books that were actually very nice and helpful just to get those spelling words done at night, right? And then my last question, I promise, is when students are continually having absences and tardies and not showing, is that fact that does the home visit or checks in?
It's right now, it's kind of a combination of support services. So what we really try to do is identify what the why behind the absence. So if it's possibly something with transportation or access to alarm clocks has been something that's come up quite a bit. FACT really steps in. If it's for medical reasons, maybe student is having common intermittent fevers and they're missing a lot of school for that, the nurses might step in to say, have you followed up with your primary care provider? Is this maybe a diagnosis that wouldn't be excludable versus an actual illness that would be? And then our counselors really also do a lot of the follow-up on the day-to-day to see what student needs exist in that school. And so there are awesome support that is grounded in the building and that help refer out to FACT and nurses to support some of that work too. And then of course we also have our amazing office staff and administrators and teachers really supporting a lot of our attendance work also.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're doing a lot of great work. Very much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, summer school report. Assistant Superintendent Harlan.
Thank you. So at a previous board meeting, We had talked about getting a report about summer school and some of the programs, and then actually some of the numbers around what participation looked like. And so a shout out to Bonnie Dietrich, who is the federal programs coordinator for the district, and she is the one who was responsible for summer program, which was quite an undertaking, and also for this report. And so I will do this happily on her behalf, but I don't want to take the credit because this was all her. Okay. So for summer programs, just a reminder as we get started, we were, all schools were awarded a grant for summer program, and districts were required to match a certain percentage of that. So our match came out of ESSER 3, I think, to about the tune of maybe $325,000. But we were provided considerable funds in the last 2 years to provide programs that we otherwise haven't been able to or wouldn't have been able to. So we had kind of two specific programs. We had K-8 Summer Learning Enrichment Grant, and we also had summer learning that was specific for high school. The delineation there was the high school grant had to be tied to credit earning, whereas of course the K-8 is not. That was different this year. I want to point that out for the high school grant, because last year we could offer enrichment opportunities to high school students as well that didn't necessarily have credit earning potential. We could cover that with a grant, and that was a limitation of this year. So the students that we served K-8 in that enrichment grant were about 617 students. I loved seeing that we had some kindergarten students, particularly at our Jump Start, but this is what it looks like in terms of the breakdown by grade. So some of the programs that we offered for K-8, certainly we had transportation, breakfast, and lunch that were offered in all of our programs. We had field trips that were specific for our migrant education students in our summer program. And then also for Memorial Middle School had a transition program. 3 of the 4 middle schools did, and Memorial included some field trips in that. We had a family night transition program specifically for NAMS, and then we had some outdoor activities for students in WAVES. So in our program, you'll see that we called it 2 types of program. WAVES of enrichment was the last part of the day. So the morning would have been academics. In the afternoon, it would have been enrichment, more camp style kind of activities that included a lot of kind of outdoor education. So we called our summer school program for K-8 Surfs Up, and then Waves of Enrichment is what I had just talked about. We had about 375 students. We focused a lot for K-5 on literacy, literacy skills and social emotional learning. And then in middle school, it would have been ELA, also math, and also social emotional learning. You'll see there we had more students participate in the academic portion, but we had a considerable amount of students who would have been there all day for the afternoon. I think specifically for our K-5 students, it provided some support to families to be able to have their students attend and have academics in the morning and then some enrichment activities in the afternoon, because as a parent, you knew that they would be there all day, and then pick up and drop off was a lot easier than having a half day and having to figure out what childcare looked like in the afternoon. Some of the enrichment activities that we had included STEM, it included Lego robotics, science, certainly art, certainly some physical activity and games. For other programs, we had transition programs that focused on our kinder transitions, and we call that Jumpstart Kinder, and then our middle school transition programs. You'll see there that hours a day, how many days it was offered, the attendance, and how many students participated. For our transition programs at the high schools, we had 9th grade transition programs that happened. Again, you'll see the hours, the number of days it was offered, and the daily attendance for those transition programs. So students who participated in those programs had the ability to earn some credit before they ever started high school. So particularly appreciate those programs because kids feel like they come, they already know what the school looks like, they know what to expect, they know what their schedule will look like, and they're starting high school ahead, already having earned credits. that's something I think that it would be worthwhile looking to expand, considering that our 9th grade classes this year were quite large, probably 200 to 300 students in those classes. For our K-8 programming, specific programming with special programs, we offered transportation, support for nursing, instructional aids, assistive technology, and then all of our summer programs are available to any student. And I think that's important to note because I think we get some questions about that. But those Jumpstart Kinder transition programs, our enrichment programs are available to any student regardless of disability. So our high school academic support, this was different because this was really, this happened after the end of the school year for students to be able to either complete or recover credits that they were missing. So we had 573 high school students. They were offered, so of that 573, 563 successfully earned credits. So almost all of them but 10. We had 474 credits that were earned during that time. That's huge, right? In terms of when we look at 9th and 10th grade on track, the percentage of students who are on track for their grade level. This is a huge intervention to allow that to increase and for the number of our students to remain on track or to be on track.
Lisa, can you comment on the fact that there are so we had 563 students earn a credit.
Some credit at least,
some
yep.
level, and that clearly is broken up because there's 474 credits earned.
Yeah.
Kids can earn quarter and
Yeah,
half?
yep. They can earn quarter credits, half credits. This also, the academic support grant also includes AOS, and so they are on generally a trimester, and the way that their credits are awarded are also different. But you're about to see what that looks like. So this is broken down by content area so that you can see the number of credits that were earned and in what area, right? So it's not all elective credits, right? Kids are earning credit in courses that are required for graduation, and that's huge. We also had credit recovery programs for Albany Online. So we have some students who do Albany Online their entire K-12 career. Also for Albany Options, we have a partnership with LBCC where they offered classes for students that students were able to take for free and be awarded high school credit and college credit for. And then we have it broken down for each of the high schools and what they offered and what was earned as well. Any questions about our summer program services or data from this year's summer programs?
This is just amazing. Like, this is really good content.
No, I think it's great. It's fantastic. Lots of credits. Here on the high school credits by program, it says South attempted 331.25 and got over what they attempted. I mean, that's awesome.
No, it says credits attempted 342 and that the credits earned were 331.
Oh, it's flip-flopped in our...
Yeah.
Oh, is
Flopped in
in
ours.
board books?
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Nice job, Lise. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Michael, did you have a
well,
question?
yeah, you know, when I first looked at this, the numbers, so clearly the high school academic support grant seemed to be the thing that people really grabbed the most out of. I was glad to see kindergartners showed up in a big number. That's great to start there before they start. But as you look through first grade, second grade, third grade on the other, I was little, you know, I said when I asked about summer programs, I'd said we've got to start thinking about summer a little differently. You know, I don't want to put it all on the parents, you know, but I think it's part of the reason why we, the statewide, offered these programs in 2021 and 2022 was really to focus on, that's our chance to do some catch up, which is on the front of everyone's mind. And so going forward, I think clearly where people want it, it seems to be the high school credit, that's, that's what they want. But if there's ways to encourage the other program, I don't have a great answer. I'm telling you something that I don't have a great answer for, but I just thought I don't know, maybe my expectations were too high, but I thought the numbers were a little low.
So for K-5, we were in about the 500s. In terms of overall enrollment for K-5, that's probably out of, I'm going to ballpark it, 4,000, 4,500. And so you would certainly want to see more. This program happened in the month of July. Very well organized. A shout out to Caitlin Lindsay, the elementary side. She was phenomenal in terms of the reading instruction that students received and the organization of that for staff to make it really easy to have the materials you needed to really advance kids where they're at. I think that one of the things that we'll be looking at is, how do we do a program like this continued if we don't continue to get grants? And the transition programs at both the middle school, the Jumpstart Kinder, and the high school are really needed. And I think as a district, we could do a better job with planning ahead, with using transportation and district communication to ensure that families know long enough ahead of time that they don't plan other things that are happening during that time. I think that's sometimes difficult. And transportation was difficult in some instances at the middle school and high school transition programs just because of the time of year and other things that were happening. And I'm afraid that was a barrier for some. Okay. So they are amazing programs that make a real difference for kids and what they know. And we would like to see it expand because we think there's a lot to offer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Next is bond business reports. South Shore modular permit fees.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a topic that we've talked about, I think, at the previous board meeting. We have received additional permit fees beyond what we anticipated and what we budgeted for. Director Nyquist mentioned that he'd like to be involved in some of the discussions that we have on the district side as far as a better understanding of where these come from and the history of them. I believe the superintendent's office is coordinating a meeting for that. We're having an internal meeting this Wednesday to discuss with HMK and others to have kind of the full story so we can give you a more clear picture on what that is. I've got a pretty good understanding of it, but I'd prefer to get the rest of the details before sharing in a public format. At this point, the recommendation in our weekly capital project planning meetings with Superintendent Gardner is that we should pay these fees now so that we don't hold up the work at the site. And if we need to pursue a reconsideration at the city level, that's something that we might want to look forward to as well. But to not pay these would jeopardize the schedule and incur costs potentially.
So my concern, if no one else wants to talk, is the bus barn. So we had the same thing happen at the bus barn, and we are $500,000 off. That's not just fat finger. That's a big issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're having it again. So we got to do a better job of understanding where our money's spent beforehand.
Yep. Fully agree with that as well. There was some work by HMK to compare the North Albany Elementary and Waverly modular projects and project what we thought the permit fees would be. There were some early questions that were asked of the city on if they thought that would be a fair estimate in terms of what they budgeted for. The city said that seems like a fair estimate. You could move forward with that. Then one particular issue came up that caught us all by surprise quite a bit that I'd like to get some more information on before I go into great detail on that.
I've worked with the city of Stayton as well on these, and the real challenge is that these fees are outstanding and need to be paid before work can go. We may not have had a clear understanding of how that, the formula is what, 3 to 5 p.m. peak traffic, the trips generated, then that leads to the computation of the fees. We do have the right to do our own model and appeal Matt did say he has never seen a company who has gone away and had that model constructed that's ever brought it back to him. They never see him because it basically confirms their model. And so this is probably an underestimation.
What are we getting for our money from the city? I mean, I'm sorry, but I pull out every morning and I either try to finagle to get my kid across the street to South Albany High School, or I'm here or there. I see it at a lot of schools. I see it all over town. We're paying a fee because we're generating trips. And so my next question is, so what are they going to do to accommodate those additional trips with the money we're paying them? And we don't all have to answer it here because we're not in that room. We don't have the right people in the room right now to answer that. But this can't just go on and on and on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the concern is, with this and the bus, we're like $750,000, that we got to do a better job of predicting that.
So let me, sorry, I wasn't going to say a word. In the case of the bus barn, all we're doing is moving from a current location to a new location. We're not generating new trip one, I don't think, because our enrollment's down. I don't know that our busing, the kids in the bus, I don't know that that's up. So it just, where's the overall increase in the impact there? I don't see it. And if it were, again, so I would just request that you request that they track that money and tell us where that money winds up on the other side and what it went to pay for.
I think one of the things that you deal with, because we thought about a school closing, moving to another location, right? So all of the trips and the drop-offs were going to go to a new location in Stayton. And they said, nope, that's new construction. And so in the case of the bus barn, they would say, someone else will move in and will have trips. It is the new construction that they are feeing.
Oh, and so they aren't going to get charged?
Someone new to the bus barn who
Yeah.
buys it,
Yeah.
they would not have that same permit. They would just buy it and,
And who knows what they're going to use it for?
yeah.
Just,
And it's why businesses work around it. It's why General Dental next to Starbucks left one wall of their building where they could call it a remodel and not a new construction. We're not, how many students are we adding with this project?
At South Shore, we're doing a classroom for classroom match. We're not adding classrooms.
We're not adding, the population is not changing for the traffic flow. We're replacing roofs.
so at least if you're going to take our money, give us some infrastructure at these facilities. I yield.
That said, the request is the consideration to pass a motion to approve the permit fees as presented.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, new business, Budget Committee calendar.
So the
Okay.
calendar that we're presenting to you is designed to allow for as late as possible adoption. With this being a legislative year, we move that to the last meeting in June when it would be adopted. Other than that, it really follows the schedule of prior years.
Does the budget have to be adopted before July 1?
Yes. And so tonight, I'm asking that you adopt the calendar so that we can plan and move forward with that.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the Budget Committee calendar as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, and Jane, you're on this one too, Budget Committee appointment.
So we have one person whose term expired from the Budget Committee, Heather Carmichael. And so we need to accept applications to fulfill that position. They're 3-year terms.
Could I make a proposal to the board?
Go ahead, Michael. Or not, Eric, sorry.
Could we temporarily extend a position until after July 1st? And so a newly elected board members would have a say in who's on the budget committee for the next 3 years. When I was elected, and Michael, in the last 2 weeks of their session, they appointed a new superintendent and 2 new budget committee members, and we inherited. I find it highly lame duckish to do that. I don't know if it would be appropriate just to extend that person's term till July 1.
That's fine, but I believe, so that would be this year's budget process. I believe Heather, I think the whole point of it is that she's not interested in being, she'd be around for this. If we extended it, it would just be an empty spot, I believe.
I didn't know if she was willing to
I
continue.
mean, I'm making an
on.
assumption, I don't know either. I'm making an assumption that we are looking at a new, because she has said, I could be totally wrong, I don't know.
Could we bring this back at the next meeting and have a conversation with her?
We can do that.
If that's okay with the rest of the board.
Yes,
Chris and I will check with her.
yeah.
Okay. Roger, anything?
Too much. Look, I'm just really concerned about our next budget. And we, like most school districts, most government entities over the last 2 or 3 years, have gotten a lot of one-time revenue or short-term grant money that's not there long-term. And over the last 3 years, everybody's been scrambling to deliver what services we can and we're supposed to with whatever dollars are available. I think that in the next budget cycle, we will need to reevaluate, from my perspective at least, everything we're doing and how long we've been doing it and how successful we're doing it and what bang for the buck we're getting. And it won't be a status quo kind of, how do we just keep doing everything we're doing kind of budget, because the revenue has been all over the place. And so to that end, I thought the budget committee last budget year was good. They read the material, they asked good questions. Some of them have been doing it for a while. And so we need the most experienced, the most talented group we can get looking over this next budget. And if Heather is interested in continuing, I, for one, would be all in support of her doing that and having us not go through this process, if you will. I don't know the history of how we got to where we are and if I'm breaking some board policy or something by saying that, but those are my thoughts.
I think so policy, we really tried to encourage, if I recall, re-upping the person who was, whose term was expiring. We tried to encourage that, whether it was policy or just kind of informally. So, I agree.
Yeah, I'm unsure if she wants the position again, so that's really the big thing we got to figure out, right? So
We have time
you guys will look into that, and if need be, we'll put out applications to meet the deadline that we need to meet. We can do that, Chris, you think, or?
Yes, we could. I think it would be a motion to ask the existing, and then if she's not interested, to proceed with the application, and then appoint 2 board members, because in the process you followed before is 2 board members were appointed to review the applications and then bring back a recommendation to the board to consider. So that would be what you would need to do to go forward.
If we're inviting Heather to reapply, and we're doing this here.
Right, but if she's not interested, then it
okay.
would delay
All right,
it
okay,
2
I got
weeks
it.
to come back,
Okay,
right?
all right,
So
thank
if
you.
she's interested, then we would bring back the recommendation to appoint her at the next board meeting. Because she's gonna say yes, right?
We hope.
If
we
she
hope,
says yes,
we
that's what
hope.
I'm saying. So if we ask her and she says she would like to extend the term, then that would be the recommendation that would come back at the next board meeting to approve.
Okay.
Otherwise, we would have the ability to proceed in collecting applications prior.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
So you gotta officially say it.
So I would like to make a motion to extend Heather Carmichael's time on the budget committee to July 1 if she's accepting, or 30 June if she's accepting. If she declines her offer, I would make that motion for the chair and vice chair to form a committee to review applications.
Do I hear a second?
Mine was a bit different. Mine was, the consensus was to invite her to reapply for her position, her expiring position for another term.
Do you
And
do you
face
only
the
need the
field?
first half, or do you need the whole?
Need the whole thing in case she says she doesn't want to do it. So we have two motions on.
No, I can't. That wasn't a motion because you have a motion.
Okay.
It's not mine, and
All right, so we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'd like to offer to amend the motion to invite her to apply for another term in her current position on the budget.
That would be the best outcome.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So part of that motion, the way I understood it, is Brad and I would be the board members if she says no.
Well, it's default. That wasn't part of the motion because we just did it. In the event that doesn't happen, it's protocol and.
Okay. Chris, you have what you need?
I think so.
Okay. Future agenda items?
I would like to see a preschool presentation. We've had those in the past, and we've kind of COVID paused them. But I would like to see the gals from Waverly do a good job. It's really exciting to hear how South Shore opened up, and then also the fact missed a little bit of the greatness that they do when it covers McKinney-Vento, because we could spend a whole night on that. They also provide a lot of dinners and washing of clothes every day, and they do it without embarrassment, and they do it very professionally. So thank you again, FACT.
Okay.
I've got stuff.
Go ahead, Roger.
All right, so I do read my mail, especially the mail I get here. And we all got, I think, correspondence from students at Liberty Elementary School. And in going through these, they are telling us it's too hot in their classroom and it's not good for learning. And I got to read a couple of these into the record. Part of one, this is just part of one. If you make a fan out of paper, it just swoops air out. It doesn't actually control the heat. So that means you are stuck with hair sweat above your eyelashes for the rest of school. And if you try it with a real paper fan, it just swoops 2% air directly into your hair. And that is why we should have air conditioning. Another one, I think we should get air conditioning because it might be very uncomfortable for the children because they might be very hot and sweaty. So I think we need an AC for every school and classroom because it might be a very hot day to where you think you're gonna go crazy to where you wanna run wild. And we don't want that to happen. And probably the most persuasive to me is we need air conditioning because a 2014 study demonstrated that both excessively cold and hot temperatures directly affect students' learning ability. High school students scored an average of 76 when it was 61 degrees Fahrenheit and did worse when it was 81 degrees Fahrenheit, scoring an average of 72%. When it was 72, what most people would consider a comfortable temperature, students' average scores went up to 90%. Hotter school years result in less learning because people are concentrating less on what they're supposed to be doing because of heat. Air conditioning would help a lot. Thank you. You said thank you. So it just I mean, one, what if anything can we do immediately? Hopefully, we don't have more 91-degree days outside. It is mid-October, but you look at the 10-day forecast, and it doesn't look like October as we traditionally know it. So can we look at things like outside classrooms? I don't know where and how they could do that. Should we reduce class time on days above 90 degrees and let them be outside in the shade and have fun instead of trying to make paper fans and that thing not working out? Should we look at an inventory in the community of air-conditioned buildings, facilities that we might be able to shift kids to if it gets too hot out? The Lynn County Fairgrounds and the facilities out at LBCC might be a couple examples of that. In the long term, I mean, it's pretty consistent, these meetings, for me. I like to know where we're at financially and where we're going. And almost without exception, every meeting I come to, I have a new financial riddle or problem to solve for the district than when I came to the board meeting. And so it just further highlights the need for a deep dive into the finances and having the choices and options before us, so we know that if we're choosing X, we don't get to do Y, because we don't, contrary to a popular belief of some, I guess, is we don't have a printing press and can't just spend to no end. So something to think about. But I do want to thank the kids from Liberty, and I do hope that we watch the thermometer this week and talk about contingencies. And if they're not going to, if their learning is compromised, at least we could try to let them have some fun while they're at school. So a hot day wouldn't necessarily be all bad. There would be some good with it. Says the kid who had trouble getting to class all the time.
Okay, future agenda items? None, other business?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank Marty V, Ms. Smith, and Lisa for their proposals, and I want to thank you guys for your thoughtful questions. I thought it was a great meeting.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to adjourn 7:27.